but I am doing God's work now. And that is all I'm doing.
For the worst, then I'm prepared to handle that as well. But yeah, it was something.
Moments where you're kind of, almost channeling truths into.
Have you ever noticed that some of the biggest stars in Hollywood suddenly disappear just when it seems like they're about to reach another level? For years, people have asked questions about what really happens behind the scenes of the entertainment industry.
It's just a game. There is a reason why you see people dressed up as Satan. Not just, like Satan slipping himself in a little bit. No, full on visuals of Satan, people dressed as Satan, dressed as a demon, got upside down crosses all on their clothes or pentagrams on their clothes. And people are just like, oh, that's funny. It's, we're making fun. No, there's a reason why the entertainment industry is doing it.
Most of those questions are quickly dismissed as rumors, conspiracy theories, or wild speculation. But what happens when the people asking those questions are celebrities themselves? That's exactly why so many people have become fascinated by China Anne McClain's story. At one point, China appeared to have everything. Hit television shows, major acting opportunities, a loyal fan base, and a career that seemed destined to keep growing. Then something changed. Instead of chasing bigger roles and more fame, she began speaking openly about her faith, questioning the values of the industry around her, and eventually stepping away from the path many expected her to follow. Around the same time, comedian Katt Williams was making headlines for his own controversial comments about Hollywood and the pressures that come with success. While many people laughed off his warnings, others started wondering if there was more truth behind his words than anyone wanted to admit. Now fans are connecting the dots and asking one question. Was China Anne McClain trying to tell people something long before the rest of the world started paying attention?
What I did know and have known, along with the rest of the cast, since before we even started shooting this season, is that I am leaving the show and was leaving the show. This was going to be my last season, regardless of if it went on or not, for different reasons that, to be honest, I don't want to go into. I just want y'all to trust me on it. There's been a lot to happen over this quarantine. These things are real. These people that are dying in the way of the world now. And all this is an illusion. It's an illusion. This industry, for what it is, and everything that people look to and praise, it's not important. God is moving me in more than one way than just this show. It's bigger than this show. I'm doing God's work now. And I'm not doing anything else. Just gonna put it plainly. I'm not leaving because I had a terrible time working.
For most child stars, success is supposed to follow a predictable path. One hit project leads to another. Bigger contracts arrive. More attention follows. Before long, they become household names and spend decades enjoying the rewards of a career built in front of the camera. China Anne McClain seemed to be following that exact path. From a young age, she built a reputation as one of the most talented young performers in entertainment. Audiences watched her grow up on screen, and industry executives appeared eager to keep her involved in major projects. Every year seemed to bring another opportunity, another role, another reason to believe her future in Hollywood was secure. To the public, everything looked perfect, but behind the scenes, China would later suggest that her priorities were beginning to change.
This is actually happening, I think. I think that my mind is just kind of shut down at this point. So I'm just kind of feeling a little numb, just like a little bit empty, like just going through the motions and just like, I'll never again have a friend like Cameron.
While fans were celebrating her success, she was becoming increasingly focused on questions that had nothing to do with fame, money, or career advancement. She began speaking more openly about her faith, her personal beliefs, and her growing conviction that some things were more important than entertainment. At first, most people didn't think much of it. Celebrities talk about spirituality all the time. Actors and musicians frequently discuss religion, personal growth, and finding purpose. But as time passed, China's message became stronger and more direct. She wasn't simply talking about faith. She was talking about stepping away from things she felt no longer aligned with her beliefs. And that's where people started paying attention. Many fans noticed that her interviews sounded different than before. Her social media posts sounded different. Even the way she discussed her future seemed different. Instead of talking about the next big project, she was talking about purpose. Instead of discussing career goals, she was discussing spiritual goals. Instead of focusing on success, she seemed focused on something deeper. For some people, that was inspiring. For others, it was confusing. Why would someone who had worked so hard to reach the top suddenly appear willing to walk away from it? The questions became even louder when major changes started happening in her professional life. Projects ended, plans changed, and before long, many people began wondering whether China was leaving Hollywood or whether Hollywood was leaving her. The speculation only intensified after the tragic passing of Cameron Boyce. Cameron wasn't just another celebrity in China's life. He was a friend, someone she had known personally, someone whose loss affected countless fans around the world. When news of Cameron's death shocked the entertainment industry, people everywhere struggled to process what had happened. The official explanation was widely reported, and tributes poured in from friends, family members, and fellow performers. Like many others, China publicly mourned the loss, but fans noticed that the experience seemed to affect her deeply. In the months that followed, her content became increasingly focused on life, faith, purpose, and the temporary nature of worldly success. To supporters, it looked like someone reevaluating what truly mattered. To critics, it looked like someone becoming increasingly disconnected from the industry she had spent most of her life working in. Regardless of how people interpreted it, one thing was obvious. China was changing, and she wasn't afraid to let the world see it. As her audience grew accustomed to seeing glamorous Hollywood updates, they suddenly found themselves watching videos about spirituality, personal conviction, and the search for truth. Not everyone appreciated the shift. Some viewers praised her honesty. Others accused her of becoming overly dramatic. And as often happens on social media, the debate quickly became polarized. People either supported her completely or criticized her relentlessly. Very few seemed interested in finding middle ground. Yet through all the criticism, China continued speaking. She continued sharing her beliefs. She continued encouraging people to think for themselves. And perhaps most importantly, she continued making it clear that she wasn't interested in changing her message just because it made people uncomfortable. That willingness to stand firm is one reason many people eventually began comparing her story to Katt Williams. For years, Katt had been one of the most outspoken voices in entertainment. Whether people agreed with him or not, he had built a reputation for saying things others were afraid to say. Again and again, he questioned the way fame works. He questioned power structures. He questioned why some people seemed to rise quickly while others struggled despite obvious talent. His comments often sparked controversy. Some people viewed him as a truth-teller. Others dismissed him as someone creating headlines. But regardless of which side people took, his words continued generating discussion. Now, years later, some fans believe there are similarities between Katt's experiences and China's journey. Not because their careers are identical, not because they share the same background, but because both eventually reached a point where speaking their minds appeared more important than protecting their public image. And that comes with consequences. Hollywood has always been a place where perception matters. Careers can be built on public opinion. Opportunities can be influenced by reputation. Relationships often determine which doors open and which remain closed. That's why some observers believe speaking openly against popular narratives carries significant risks. Whether those risks are real or exaggerated remains a subject of debate. But the perception itself is powerful, and perception shapes stories. As China's message continued reaching larger audiences, more people began revisiting interviews, statements, and comments she had made over the years. Supporters argued that she was simply following her convictions regardless of the cost. Critics argued that people were reading too much into ordinary career decisions. The truth, as usual, likely exists somewhere between the extremes. What nobody can deny is that China Anne McClain made choices that surprised many people. At a time when most entertainers chase greater visibility, she seemed increasingly focused on stepping away from the spotlight. At a time when many celebrities carefully craft messages designed to please everyone, she seemed comfortable saying things she knew would generate disagreement. And at a time when social media rewards conformity, she often appeared willing to stand alone. That combination created a mystery people couldn't stop talking about. Because whenever someone walks away from something millions dream of having, the same question always follows. What do they see that everyone else missed? And for many observers, that question would only become more intriguing as more details emerged about the path China chose, and a reaction to choices would eventually create throughout the entertainment world. The more China Anne McClain spoke about her beliefs, the more divided public opinion became. At first, the conversations were relatively small. A few social media debates here and there. Some supportive comments. Some criticism. Nothing unusual for a public figure with millions of followers. But over time, those conversations became impossible to ignore. Every video she posted seemed to spark another debate. Every statement created another wave of reactions. And before long, people weren't just discussing China anymore. They were discussing the entertainment industry itself. Supporters believed she was courageously speaking about issues most celebrities avoided. Critics believed she was making broad claims without evidence. The internet did what it always does when faced with a controversial topic. It picked sides. And once people choose sides, the story usually grows much bigger than the individuals involved. That's exactly what happened here. One of the biggest turning points came when China began discussing the influence entertainment has on culture. She argued that movies, television, music, and celebrity culture shape the way people think far more than most realize. That idea itself wasn't particularly controversial. Many experts, educators, and cultural critics have made similar observations for decades. The controversy came from what she believed that influence was being used for. According to China, people should pay closer attention to the messages being promoted through entertainment. She encouraged followers to think critically about what they consumed and why certain themes appeared repeatedly throughout popular culture. For some viewers, that message felt empowering. For others, it sounded like unnecessary fear-mongering. Regardless of where people stood, her audience continued growing. Ironically, the criticism often brought even more attention to her videos. People who had never followed her before suddenly wanted to know what everyone was talking about. The more attention she received, the more closely her words were analyzed. And then another major cultural flashpoint entered the conversation. Lil Nas X. At the time, few artists were generating more headlines. His music dominated discussions online. His creative choices sparked intense reactions from supporters and critics alike. Every new release seemed designed to start conversations. And whether people loved it or hated it, they were talking about it. When one of his most controversial projects became a major topic across social media, countless public figures weighed in. China was one of them. Her comments immediately attracted attention because she approached the discussion from a spiritual perspective rather than an entertainment perspective. She wasn't evaluating the music. She wasn't discussing chart performance. She wasn't talking about marketing. She was discussing values. That distinction mattered. To her supporters, she was simply expressing her beliefs. To critics, she was misunderstanding the artistic message behind the project. The debate quickly exploded. Some people accused her of being judgmental. Others argued she was being misrepresented. Social media transformed what could have been a simple disagreement into a massive cultural argument. Suddenly, everyone had an opinion. Everyone had a hot take. Everyone had a thread explaining why they were right. And once again, China found herself at the center of a controversy she never seemed interested in avoiding. What's fascinating is that throughout all of this, she never appeared particularly concerned about popularity. Many celebrities carefully calculate every public statement. They avoid subjects that might upset fans. They hire teams specifically designed to protect their image. China often seemed to be doing the opposite. She spoke openly. She accepted criticism. And she continued expressing her views even when she knew backlash would follow. That approach earned respect from some people. Others saw it as reckless. But almost everyone agreed on one thing. She was being authentic. Whether people agreed with her or not, she appeared genuine. And authenticity is surprisingly rare in an industry built on image. As debates around China intensified, many viewers started revisiting comments made by Katt Williams over the years. Katt had spent decades challenging conventional narratives about fame and success. Long before many of these conversations became mainstream, he was asking difficult questions. Why do some celebrities suddenly disappear? Why do certain people seem untouchable? Why are some voices amplified while others are ignored? Those questions didn't always make him popular. In fact, they often made him controversial. But controversy never seemed to stop him. The more criticism he received, the more determined he became to speak his mind. That's one reason some fans started drawing connections between him and China. Both appeared willing to sacrifice approval in exchange for honesty. Both seemed comfortable standing apart from popular opinion. And both generated intense reactions whenever they spoke. As these comparisons grew, supporters began arguing that China represented a new generation of entertainers asking similar questions. Not necessarily the same questions, not necessarily reaching the same conclusions, but asking people to think critically instead of blindly accepting everything they were told. Whether that interpretation is fair depends on who you ask, but it undeniably became part of the narrative. Meanwhile, another factor continued fueling public curiosity: China's career choices. Many fans expected her to remain constantly visible in major Hollywood productions. After all, she had already proven her talent. She had already built a loyal audience. She had already established herself as a recognizable name. Yet her path seemed increasingly different from what industry observers predicted. Instead of aggressively pursuing fame, she appeared focused on pursuing purpose. That distinction fascinated people. In a culture obsessed with success, someone voluntarily stepping away from opportunities naturally raises questions. Why walk away? Why risk everything? Why choose uncertainty over security? The answers depend entirely on perspective. Some believe she simply matured and reevaluated her priorities. Others believe deeper factors influenced her decisions. And still others think people have created a mystery where none exists. But regardless of the explanation, the public remains fascinated, because stories like this challenge assumptions. Most people assume everyone wants more fame, more money, more recognition, more influence. When someone willingly chooses a different path, it forces people to reconsider those assumptions. And perhaps that's why China's story continues generating attention years later. Not because everyone agrees with her, not because everyone believes her, but because she represents something unusual. A celebrity who seemed willing to risk popularity in order to remain true to her convictions. Whether those convictions are right or wrong is ultimately for each person to decide. But the willingness to stand by them has become a defining part of her story. And as more people revisit the warnings, questions, and observations made by Katt Williams throughout the years, the conversation continues growing. Because the deeper people look into Hollywood, fame, and celebrity culture, the more complicated the picture becomes. And just when it seems like all the answers have been found, another question appears. A question that keeps fans, critics, and observers coming back for more. What really happens when someone inside the system decides they're no longer willing to play by its rules? As the debates surrounding China Anne McClain continued spreading across social media, something interesting started happening. People stopped talking only about China. Instead, they started talking about a much bigger question. What does success actually cost? For decades, Hollywood has been sold to the public as the ultimate dream factory. Millions of people move to Los Angeles every year hoping to become actors, musicians, writers, and entertainers. They imagine glamorous lifestyles red carpets, award shows, and endless opportunities. But every so often, someone from inside that world steps forward and tells a very different story. Not necessarily a story about fame, not necessarily a story about money, but a story about pressure. Pressure to fit in, pressure to stay silent, pressure to become the version of yourself that other people want to sell. And according to many fans, that's where China Anne McClain's story begins to overlap with the warnings Katt Williams has been giving for years. Throughout his career, Katt has repeatedly challenged the idea that success is always what it appears to be. While other comedians focus primarily on making audiences laugh, Katt often mixed comedy with observations about power, influence, and the entertainment business itself. Some people loved it, others rolled their eyes. But one thing nobody can deny is that people listened, especially when his comments seemed to become more relevant with time. As interviews resurfaced online, fans noticed a recurring theme in many of Katt's discussions. The idea that public perception can be manipulated, the idea that narratives can be created, and the idea that once a story about a celebrity becomes popular, it can be very difficult for that person to change public opinion. Supporters of China believe she experienced something similar. They point out that once people began labeling her as controversial, many stopped listening to what she was actually saying. Instead, they reacted to headlines. They reacted to clips. They reacted to comments taken out of context. Whether that's fair or unfair depends on individual perspective, but it's a phenomenon that has become increasingly common in the age of social media. One viral clip can define an entire public image. One misunderstood statement can follow someone for years. And one controversy can overshadow everything else they've accomplished. That's why some people argue that China's story isn't really about Hollywood at all. It's about conviction. It's about choosing what you believe even when others disagree. It's about standing firm when doing so becomes uncomfortable. Those ideas resonate with people far beyond the entertainment industry, because everyone faces moments where they must decide whether to follow the crowd or follow their own beliefs. And that may be one reason her story continues attracting attention. Not because everyone agrees with her, but because many people understand the challenge of standing alone. Meanwhile, another name frequently entered these discussions: Dave Chappelle. Like Katt Williams, Dave became known for speaking openly about aspects of the entertainment industry that many people prefer not to discuss. Years ago, his decision to walk away from an enormously successful situation shocked audiences around the world. At the time, countless theories emerged attempting to explain why someone would leave so much opportunity behind. Over the years, Dave shared portions of his perspective, emphasizing the importance of maintaining personal integrity and protecting his own sense of self. Whether people agreed with every decision he made wasn't really the point. The point was that he made those decisions himself. And for many observers, that became a powerful lesson. Success means very little if you no longer recognize yourself. That same lesson appears repeatedly throughout conversations surrounding China Anne McClain. Again and again, her supporters point to one central theme. She seemed willing to prioritize her beliefs over public approval. That's a rare choice in any profession, but it's especially rare in an industry where approval often determines opportunity. Of course, critics see the situation differently. Some argue that people have exaggerated her experiences. Others believe fans are connecting unrelated events and creating narratives that aren't supported by facts. Those perspectives exist as well, and they deserve acknowledgement, because the reality is that nobody outside of these situations knows every detail. Public figures share parts of their lives, but they rarely share everything. What audiences see is only a fraction of the complete story. Still, that hasn't stopped people from searching for meaning in the patterns they observe. And those patterns continue fueling discussion. Why do some celebrities suddenly step away from the spotlight? Why do others become increasingly outspoken as their careers evolve? Why do certain individuals seem willing to risk everything to speak openly about what they believe? Those questions have fascinated audiences for generations, and they're unlikely to disappear anytime soon. As for China Anne McClain, Her journey continues to spark conversations because it challenges traditional expectations. Most people expect celebrities to chase more attention. She appeared more interested in chasing purpose. Most people expect stars to avoid controversy. She often seemed willing to walk directly into it. Most people expect public figures to adapt their message based on audience reactions. She appeared committed to expressing her views regardless of the response. Whether people see that as courage, stubbornness, wisdom, or something else entirely is up to them. But it unquestionably made her stand out. And standing out always attracts attention. Today, years after many of these debates first began, audiences remain divided. Some believe China was warning people about issues that deserve greater discussion. Others believe her concerns have been misunderstood or overstated. Some see Katt Williams as a truth teller. Others see him as a provocateur who challenges conventional thinking. Yet despite all the disagreements, one fact remains. People are still talking. They're still asking questions. They're still revisiting interviews. They're still examining old statements and searching for deeper meaning. And perhaps that's the biggest reason stories like these never truly disappear. Because they tap into something larger than celebrity gossip. They touch on questions about power, questions about influence, questions about authenticity, questions about what people are willing to sacrifice in order to stay true to themselves. Whether those questions lead to clear answers is another matter entirely. But they continue capturing attention because they're universal. Everyone wants to know what's real. Everyone wants to know who's telling the truth. And everyone wants to believe they would stand firm if faced with difficult choices. Maybe that's why the stories of China Anne McClain, Katt Williams, and others continue resonating with so many people. Not because everyone agrees with them, not because everyone believes them, but because their stories force audiences to think. And in a world filled with endless noise, sometimes the most powerful thing a story can do is leave people with one final question. If you were forced to choose between success and conviction, which one would you protect? And more importantly, would you have the courage to live with the consequences of that choice? Before you go, I want to hear from you. Do you think China Anne McClain made the right decision by putting her beliefs ahead of her Hollywood career? Or do you think people have misunderstood her story and turned it into something much bigger than it actually is? And what about Katt Williams? Do you believe he's been exposing uncomfortable truths for years? Or do you think his comments are often taken too seriously by fans looking for hidden meanings behind every headline? One thing is certain, stories like these continue to spark debate because they touch on issues that go far beyond celebrity culture. They force us to think about success, influence, personal conviction, and what people are willing to sacrifice for the things they believe in. Now I want you to join the conversation. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let everyone know where you stand. I read through as many comments as possible, and some of the best discussions always happen down there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button because it helps more people discover the channel. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss future videos covering the biggest celebrity stories, entertainment mysteries, and industry discussions everyone's talking about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.